Recently taught my annual class about superheroes in movies and film. Great experience, always a lot of fun, always a very interesting class with interesting discussions that come out of this topic. But this year I've decided to add a new element to the class, and that element is games. I've decided to have my students play superhero themed games so that they could see one more way in which superheroes are represented in modern culture, and also they could have a chance of experiencing the superhero theme firsthand from the perspective of the superhero. And the game Sentinels of the Multiverse was perfect for this because it showed how different types of heroes can work, and also it allows students to experience the super team dynamics, because that is really a game in which you need to work as a team in order to succeed. It went very well. Students loved it, gamers and non-gamers alike. And when we were playing the game, I divided the students in different groups, in several groups. When we were playing the game, I also added the components that are in the Rook city expansion of the base game. Both because I needed more cards so that more students could play. It was quite a large class, and also because I wanted to have more variety, different types of villains and heroes that could be thrown in the mix and experienced as part of this class activity. So after having this class activity, and then I also played the game later after the class was over, I gained enough experience with Rook City to be able today to review the expansion. So first I'll show you what the new cards in this expansion are, and then I'll elaborate on the ways in which the new characters add to the experience of playing Sentinels of the Multiverse. This expansion introduces some new game concepts. One is the H damage, where H is the number of heroes in play. So some villains will deal you, for example, H damage or H +1 or -1. And this is a good way of scaling the game, because you know that in the original set you did not have that. You kind of had to figure out what was the number of heroes that would make the game not too easy, not too hard. And this way the game just becomes harder with more heroes and easier with less heroes. It is a very simple but very effective way of creating better scaling in the game. The other concept is that of irreducible damage. That is pretty much what the name says. Damage that cannot be reduced, it can only be redirected or increased by game effects. Now let's have a look at the cards. We have two new heroes here, and they are MrFixer and Expatriate. MrFixer is a martial art expert, sort of like Iron Fist type of character. He starts with the power strike of dealing one target, one melee damage. Not super awesome, but he can then acquire equipment and styles that can definitely improve his ability to fight, and different combinations of equipment and styles will grant him different types of abilities. That is, they may increase the damage that he inflicts on one opponent, or they may allow him to inflict damage on many opponents at the same time. Just different combos are possible here. Expatriate, the Punisher / Cable type of character, big guns. Her power is to play a card, so again, not too bad, but not too super awesome, unless, of course, you have very interesting cards, which she does. She has a lot of weapons, a lot of big guns, cards that will allow her to put guns into play, and different guns will do different things, different types of attacks. On top of that, she has cards that will give her ammo, and ammo will modify the effect of the gun, the way in which the gun works, the type of amount of damage that is inflicted. Usually ammos need to be discarded after they have been used, but there are cards that will allow her to bring ammo back, and for example to take an ammo card from the trash pile and to put it on top of her deck. Interesting character, I have to say. I don't like very much characters that are super violent in comic books, characters whose main ability is to use guns. But I have to say that I think she's a good character. She's very interesting, good to play, fun to play. I like her. Now let's talk about the villains. Spite, serial killer who does drugs that modify his physical abilities, is by far my favorite villain here. Because in his deck there are cards that create two types of narratives going on at the same time. One is the victim idea, the victim plot or subplot. He's a serial killer that is going around town looking for victims to kill. When a victim card is put into play, the card will tell you what you need to do in order to remove the card from the play area and place it under the safe house card, which is placed on the table at the beginning of the game. And cards that are under the safe house are usually safe. The problem is that if you don't do that, then the victim card stays on the table. And then there are cards that allow Spite to kill victims, and when the victim card is destroyed, then he regains damage. So you just want to save those victims first because it is the right thing to do, and then because he gets advantages from eliminating the victims. At the same time, he also is collecting drugs, and when he gets 5 of them, he gains new things. He becomes even uglier than he was before. You flip the card and he gains new abilities. I'm not going to tell you what those abilities are, so I will not give you any spoilers, but I like this idea of the two things going on at the same time. Victims to save, a countdown clock that is created by the drug cards that he's adding to himself and that also give him new abilities. Very interesting. Also in comic books, superhero comic books, I like very much the idea of the heroes fight being harder than the villains fight, because villains are just fighting against their opponents. Superheroes need to do that while also keeping an eye on potential victims. I like that challenge and the way in which a specific challenge specific to superhero narratives has been added to the game here. Plague Rat, big vermin type of villain, and what he does is, well, he starts with a Plague Locus in play that will increase the damage that he can deal. He deals different types of damage, but the most interesting thing that he does is to inflict infections on the player, so these cards are added to the player's play area, representing the fact that a character is now infected, and that will allow him to give you more damage if your character is infected. And very interesting, also this type of card will force the infected heroes to attack each other. So not only do the infected heroes inflict damage on themselves each turn, but also this is a pretty interesting thing because they start attacking each other, which is interesting in terms of challenges. Then we have two villains whose main abilities are very similar. Their abilities basically consist in sending hordes of minions against you, and they do this in two slightly different ways. The chairman has an assassin that protects him, the operative, and when this card is in play, the heroes cannot win the game, so you need to eliminate her first. But as the bodyguard of the chairman, who is the leader of this very large organization, as the bodyguard, she also has the power of summoning more minions, that is to summon underbosses. And the problem is that then when an underboss is put into play, you will see that what the underbosses do is to summon thugs. So she summons underbosses that summon thugs. There is going to be quite a crowd of different types of enemies attacking you. The matriarch does something very similar, but without the pyramidal structure. She simply sends big groups of angry birds at you. She starts the game with this relic that allows her to play extra cards, and many of her cards are fouls. So the problem with the fouls is that when you put one into play, the following instructs you to then play another card from the top of the villain deck, and if that card is another foul, then you have to keep drawing cards. So there can be large numbers of these crazy birds that are attacking you or that just come out of the deck all of a sudden. And the problem is that, well, sure that many of these are not very strong, but the problem is that there are a lot of them. So actually you need the characters that have the ability to attack many targets at the same time if you want to be able to eliminate many of those at the same time. But when one of those cards is eliminated, no matter how weak the card is, then one of your heroes must destroy an equipment or an ongoing card. So actually these little guys, even though they're not that hard to kill, definitely will drain your resources and will weaken your heroes over time. And then we have two types of environment, Rook City and the chemical facility. They are okay. They are not bad. There's nothing I can really complain about, but for the fact that they're not as cool as the environments that you have in the original set. Rook City will confront you with an array of different types of criminals that are going around town, and some people that can help you, and the chemical facility has deposits of chemical stuff that can help you, that can make things more complicated for you, that can blow up. But generally speaking, even though there's nothing wrong with them, I just find them a little less interesting than some of the other environments. To me, they are somewhat weaker than the rest of the cards that you find in this expansion. Overall, this is a good expansion. It has some very strong elements. The new ideas that are added in general are definitely welcome ones. The H damage is a nice, elegant way of fixing something that could be seen as a limitation in the original set. And the new characters are some more, some less, pretty interesting. I like the new heroes, and I like some of the villains better than others. I think that they have different advantages. Some are much harder to beat, even though they're not narratively as interesting. And then you have villains such as Spite and the Plague Rat that really create nice stories, that really create subplots. And I hope that actually future villains in the system will exploit that idea more, the idea of villains not just throwing minions at you, but forcing you to experience different storylines as the main story, the main fight progresses. It is one of those expansions that overall feels like quote-unquote more of the same, which is not bad. When the original same is good, when you like the original same, then of course you just will enjoy having more ways of having fun with that initial experience and be able to play that initial experience for longer before the game becomes too repetitive or predictable. But, like in the original set, is really crucial here. The game still has some of the things that some players did not like in the original set. The game still has some heavy bookkeeping to do, many factors that you have to take into account and that change overall, so you still need to pay attention to the way in which every power on the table works and how they interact with one another. Because of this, there's a certain degree of fiddliness that some players may find not too exciting. If anything, some of the new villains really have some complex abilities that interact with each other in ways that you just have to keep track of. You just have to go through every single power and make sure that you're not forgetting anything. If you did not like that, you are not going to enjoy Rook City too much, I think, because that aspect is still here. But there is a big trade-off, that is that if you do make the game work, if you do take care of making all the effects take place correctly and interact correctly, then there are great stories that can come out of this set too. And to me, this is really what Sentinels and Rook City are. They're engines to tell a story, engines to create a narrative. All that is not particularly smooth or polished in terms of gameplay, to me is made up for by the intense thematic experience that you have, a real immersion in a superhero story that does have a strong superhero feel, and that you get to experience, interact with, manipulate, and just be the protagonist of, which to me is no small thing. So if you like the narrative feel of the original game and you did not mind some of the game design aspects, which are not particularly economic, then I think you can enjoy Rook City a great deal.